Oli, it's a pleasure to talk to you again. I saw the first 2 episodes of Secret Invasion. I really enjoyed it, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course. I mentioned this during the press conference, but a lot of people are already making comparisons between this show and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I'm sure you're familiar with that movie by now, so why do you think that comparison is happening?
I guess it's similar in tone, similar in, being grounded, being human, slightly darker, but I hope this Secret Invasion stands alone on itself too, that it explores a new world in that it's Nick's inner life, which is a little different than Nick's battling life, and Nick's return, which is a little different arc in the story. So any comparisons are welcome, and I hope that it also lives on its own.
Now watch 10 years from now, people are going to be doing interviews comparing a new project to this one.
Yeah, great, I'll take it.
Is this a project, this is a 6-episode event series. We know this leads into, some other projects, but would you say this does have kind of a definitive arc that concludes itself within the 6 episodes, or is this one of those where we're going to get to the end of 6 and we're going to say, oh gosh, it's to be continued, I got to go see this movie or that series, following it?
I think the answer is yes.
Fair enough.
Right? I think it's satisfying for it. The story ends, and we feel that Nick has achieved his goals, and there are some breadcrumbs left that could be picked up and be something else.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm looking forward to that. In directing all 6 episodes, do you approach it like it's one big film, kind of with here's the stopping points for, to Disney Plus here this week, that week, or do you kind of is it like a 3-act structure still?
I think it's one big movie. I don't know that it's a 3-act structure. I think that's difficult to run across multiple episodes, but I think it feels like one big movie because it's one big story that needs to resolve in and of itself. And yeah, we approached it as a movie.
Which
the
episode?
Longest movie Marvel has ever made.
Yeah, it's 6 hours long. I mean, also these episodes are almost a full hour long. Is there any sort of instruction like, okay, well, let's get this one? Do they give you like runtime instructions, or is it like, hey, this is the best way to tell the story?
Yeah, it was really beautiful in that they're not all an hour. Some of them are considerably shorter, and it just allowed it to be what the story needs.
That's awesome.
That's a gift you don't get very often.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, this show has humans and it has Skrulls. Those are 2 very different species. What did you do? How did you direct your actors to make sure there's a different, maybe it's body language, a different dialect, to be able to differentiate them, but also be able to fool the audience on who might be a Skrull?
Interesting question. Very interesting question. I think we went for the humanity in all of it, right? Even Gravik, who is a proud Skrull and angry, we went for how do you connect this to a human audience, because I don't think there's a Skrull audience out there for this show. And they are different only in the fact that they possess slightly different strengths and slightly different capabilities, and anybody who was shape-shifting understood what they were doing. But by and large, they were trying to connect to the heart of the character and the heart of the story. Sure,
and there's a level of maturity to it that I really appreciated. I mean, we mentioned like the grounded and darker tone. We've talked about that. But I mean, whether it's in the dialogue, the way it's written, some of the words that are used, some not like any crazy violence, but there is a bit of violence to it, which seems to indicate Marvel's like, okay, our audience is growing up with us. It's been 15 years. How did you start to, how does that all work into it? Do you have to kind of get clearances? Okay, well, we can show this amount of blood. We can use these words. How does that all work, and why are those important tools to help tell a story?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Feige and Marvel said this is the tone of the show, and this is what we want it to be, and we want it to be darker, and go for the violence, just go for it, and then it's an ongoing conversation as you're editing about, should the bullet hit the head or hit the heart, or where would the bullet hit, and what color would the blood be, and so I think that all becomes a different conversation, but ultimately it all goes back to how do you best tell the story.
Sure. Did you find yourself collaborating with or hearing from other projects to say, okay, well, this is part of a puzzle, we have to fit it in, that's what they're doing there, or did you have kind of complete freedom in that regard?
I don't know if it's freedom as much as we focused on what this story was, and as long as we put Nick where we need Nick at the end of episode 6, everything's good.
There you go. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Nick. This is a very different version of Nick Fury than we're used to seeing. He doesn't have that step aheadness that we're used to seeing for 15 years. He's lost a bit of a step, quite literally. Can you talk to me about the version of Nick Fury you got Samuel L. Jackson to portray in Secret Invasion?
Well, I think, it starts with a Nick who's lived through the blip and lived through just his absence and the disorientation that both of those things brought about. He's been absent from his personal life, and I think in order for his professional life, his avenging to go on, he needs to address some issues in his personal life, and that's something that we've never seen Nick Fury do. And it's a much deeper, richer level of acting that I think Sam was excited to do.
I appreciated that in the first 2 episodes, and I don't remember which one it is, but there is a line of dialogue that kind of tells us why superheroes, per se, are not directly getting involved, at least early on. Can we expect any familiar faces, though, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe to show up, to surprise us at all?
Isn't Nick Fury a familiar face from the Marvel?
Well, anybody
Cinematic
who we haven't seen yet.
I don't want to spoil it for you.
That's fair. That's fair. Which episode are you most excited for us to see?
The whole movie, right? I think they all. I love each of them for different reasons, but once it's all done, I hope audiences are thrilled and you're satisfied.
I can't wait to see it all.
All right.
Thank you so much for talking with me about it.
It was a pleasure.